There we go. We are live. Good evening, chaps.
Evening. Evening, Steve.
It is. Good evening.
It is. Check me out. You have to check, definitely. So how are you, Steve? What have you been up to? Well, I wasn't going to comment on your earrings, to be fair, but now you've brought them up. They're a bit dangly, aren't they?
They are, aren't they? It allows me to talk to you.
Well, this is true. So how are you, Steve? What have you been up to?
Busy. Well, the kids have been in lockdown for 20 weeks, and then they've got the school holidays, so I'm a little bit behind with writing the SPR's new equipment guidance notes.
See, now I was going to get onto that later.
Success of the last one.
Which one might that be? Which last book might that be?
The guidance notes for investigators, the SPR publication. That's the one. I was going to try and reach over surreptitiously and grab my copy, but it's just out of reach.
Absolutely no need, Steve. I am prepared as prepared comes. So, Steve, you did indeed write the guidance notes for investigations or investigators of spontaneous cases.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to correct you. I wrote the new edition.
Rewrote it,
because
yeah.
It was first written over 50 years ago, and it was getting a little long in the tooth. So it needed revising. So foolishly, I said, it's getting a little long in the tooth. It needs revising. So they said, go on then.
Off you pop.
Off you pop and do it. So, but then
you did.
Yeah, but then last year, while I was hoiking it round the fairs, fates and paracons and car boot sales, I was getting loads of questions relating to predominantly the equipment. And I realised that, there is a little bit on the equipment in the guidance notes, but the guidance notes primarily deal with a full overview of the case, of case investigations. But there was a need for a specific set of guidance notes so that people can get the best from all the equipment that they use. Because we do have a lot of equipment, and hunters love their gadgets, but a lot of them, I go around and I see they use it because the others use it. They see it being used on TV. There's a lot of them. There's a sort of macho thing in a lot of the tech experts in the groups. They're not going to read the instruction manuals.
No, absolutely not. I mean, recently,
RTFM doesn't mean anything to them.
I recently joined an SPR live webinar, would we call it?
When
you did, yes, it was indeed. Yeah, when you was doing
I enjoyed that.
It really was, and it was quite enlightening, to be fair, because as you say, a lot of people don't actually understand the equipment that they're using, but they're going out and they're shaking it around willy-nilly and just assuming that because it's making a noise, it means there's a ghost there. But in actual fact, I'm probably going to come across really disliked during this live, so I would apologise, but I'd be apologising for the wrong thing. Yeah. But a lot of the equipment it's exactly that. It's just noises.
Well,
it's building expectations for nothing, because there is no proof that they...
Well, you can't measure something that you don't know what it is. And as we currently still don't know what a ghost is or what an apparition is... in fact, a lot of the dictionaries can't even agree on the definition of a ghost. So to say that we can measure it or in some way quantify it it's bad science. It's wrong. But what we can do a huge amount of stuff with equipment, because what we can do when the witness says, I felt cold, I saw something, I heard something, we can objectively look at that, because one of the advantages of equipment is it doesn't have any imagination. It can't imagine hearing a sound. It can't imagine a smell or an image. And so we can test the claims that the witness is making. So if they say the room went icy cold, well, that's the way they describe it, is them trying to interpret the enormity of the event and the experience that they were having to someone who wasn't there. Now, if we are there, Go on.
Just going to throw into that though, especially when it comes to like people saying that they've noticing cold spots and things like that. It depends on what thermometer you're using and in which manner you're using it as well, because a lot of the temp guns, people will point it and shoot and think that it's getting the space in the middle when it's not. It's actually going to where the beam's pointing.
Well, exactly. I mean, this is covered in and this is why the guidance notes for equipment were needed, because there are several different ways of measuring temperature. And this erroneous idea that you can shoot a laser beam thermometer across the room and measure the temperature of the cold spot in the middle of the room is complete fallacy, because you'll measure the temperature of the wall at the far side. Likewise, thermal imagers, they can't see gas. So you can't see an apparition, whether it's warmer or colder or whatever, if it's in free space. All it can see is emitted infrared energy. So it works almost exactly the same way as a laser thermometer does. But people nonetheless convince themselves that there's an apparition walking through the middle of the room, or there's a cold spot surrounding them. And if you want to measure that, there are thermometers that are available to do it.
So which thermometer would you say was the most accurate?
The most accurate and affordable is something called a Type K thermocouple. It sounds, I mean, you can get, they're also dirt cheap as well. And it's a Type K thermocouple is essentially two wires that are soldered together at the tip. But the wires have to be different types of metal. And when that solder joint is heated or cooled, in relation to the other end of the wire where the electronics are, it generates a voltage. And that can be measured, and that's a direct proportional relationship to the temperature. But the one thing I've got to say is, when you measure the temperature in a room with the thermometer, whatever the thermometer is, you're only measuring the temperature at the tip of the thermometer. You're not measuring it 8 inches away, 10 inches away, 8 feet away. So if you want to measure the temperature of a room, there are methods and procedures to go through. And again, that will be outlined in the guidance notes, because it can be really simple. It's really easy to do, but a lot of investigators fail to do it. And if they did it, the quality of the evidence that they produce would be significantly better.
Absolutely,
it would be more credible. One day, I've always believed that one day a ghost hunting group is going to be in the right place at the right time. But what I want them to do is to be in the right place at the right time and capture evidence that will confound the critics. Not blunder around and go, oh, we saw an apparition.
Steve?
Yeah.
Hello? Have we lost you?
Hello?
No, Steve, I can still hear you.
No, it's Gemma that's gone.
Oh, had I gone?
No, we just weren't listening. Most people.
Sorry, no, I don't know what's going on. I think my internet's dipping in and out, so I am so sorry, everybody. I'm not sure what's happening. But
sorry, Gemma's having a hot flush.
I think one of look, I'm not being funny, but we just said off air. I was like, guys, I am so sorry. Look at the state of me. So massive apologies, everybody. I look absolutely shocking. I know. Another thing that really bugs me is because people don't take into account the environment itself anyway, because you'll get people in a room, the room was empty beforehand, so somebody in the bright idea thought, I'll go do a baseline check. So they went off, did a baseline check with a gun, shooting the wall down the bottom end 6 foot away. And then as the night goes on, you'll get a group of 10 people in that room, and then somebody will say, oh, let's check the temperature. Well, the temperature is going to be different because you've got more body heat in there. You've got doors, you've got vacuums coming through. So you are going to have that fluctuation. And then people automatically put 2 and 2 together, come up with 10 and say that there's been a fluctuation when it's not the case. It is just the environment causing that.
Well, again, baseline observations are important, but they're a baseline upon which to judge the other measurements. Now, a baseline, in order to be accurate, needs to be running all of the time. It's pointless doing your baseline an hour before, 10 minutes before, the day before, which happens, and then to go, oh, well, it's changed. Well, of course it's going to change. I mean, if you take something as simple as sound, it could be quiet 1 second and then a clap of thunder, and a sound meter will go off the scale. So you can say, oh, well, compared to the baseline, but if the baseline was done yesterday when there was a truck parked outside, so what we advocate and what we've always advocated is you have a package of equipment that's running a permanent baseline. So data logging and recording devices are simple, are easy enough to acquire now, and they're cheap. So you could have mounted into the middle of the room, and I'm not talking about on the floor. I'm talking about in the middle, vertically and horizontally, a data logging thermometer. Now that will give you a good average baseline for the temperature in that room. Likewise, you can have a single locked off wide angle, something like a GoPro video camera, which will give you a running visual and audio baseline of what's happening in that space. Now, if another camera or device or person has an experience, you can refer to the baseline.
Yeah.
But that baseline needs to run continuously from the minute you arrive to it's the first thing you set up and the last thing you pack away.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
Pointless doing it before, popping in the night before or the day before or in the afternoon, or when conditions are going to be different. And as you say, you put a group of 20 people in there, you're going to mess about with the temperature.
Absolutely. Not only that, the weather as well, the building cooling down after having heating on all day. There is so many variables when it comes to temperature that I think that people, I think a lot of it boils down to expectations. And I think
it does.
A million
people
times.
People forget that the weather outside directly affects the weather inside. In the summer you open windows and doors and you have air conditioning, and in the winter you have heating and fires on, and so the weather outside, the way that the wind blows against the structure impacts upon the structure of the building. And if you're measuring sound on a windy night, it will be very different than on a still, quiet night. And so the outside weather, but then what you see is groups that are well-meaning but slightly off the beam. When Most Haunted was on, excuse me, they used to do things like recording the moon phase and recording the temperature. Now, if you want to know the temperature outside the building that you're investigating, there are some groups that advocate, they go onto the internet and they check the local weather. Now, I live 5 miles from Milford Haven, where there is a Met Office weather station, and it's routinely up to 8-9 degrees Fahrenheit Celsius difference between us and them, because we're 400 feet above sea level on a very exposed part of the hillside. So if you want to know the temperature outside, go measure it, step outside. And if you want to know what the wind's doing, you can buy these small handheld anemometers to measure the wind, and you can measure it on the 4 sides of the building, and you can find out, which way it's blowing. And because physics plays a part in this. If you stick a building in a wind, on one side you've got pressure, and on the other side you've got low pressure, which equates to suction. And you all know what happens when you open and close doors. Other doors open and close too. And you get that same pressure effect caused by the weather, where doors and windows can do odd things.
But again,
what would be your ideal investigation then, Steve, regarding the equipment you need?
No, I always started off on the basis. In fact, I was putting together an investigation that's been postponed until October because of the current situation. And we start off on the basis of using no equipment at all, because until we arrive and we speak to the witnesses, we find out what their experiences are. If you go all the way back to what Harry Price did at Morley, the very first, he had the phone call from VC Wall, and he went along, And he explored, explored the building from top to bottom. He peered into rooms, he opened cupboards, he lifted things up and down. He sealed things that needed, so he wanted to examine them. And then that was the basis, and then he spoke to the witnesses. But that was the basis of, until you know what you're going to do, you can't really do anything. Then gradually, over the course of talking to the witnesses, having a team of investigators there, things will start to come into sharper focus. So, for example, the witnesses might tell you that in a particular room, the temperature feels different, or in a particular room, they don't like the sensations in that room, or they can hear sounds. What you're doing as an investigator is trying to test their claims and understand their experiences. You're not trying to trick them, but if they're hearing sounds, then if you can hear the sounds and record the sounds, it gives you a better opportunity to understand what it is they're hearing. Because people do interpret what their experiences are quite differently. And I think back to a case over 20 years ago at a museum, a maritime museum up on Merseyside. And one of the witnesses had reported the sounds of a heavy body being dragged along the floor upstairs. Now, when we recorded the sound, we were able to record the sound, fortunately. We verified with the witness that was the sound they were hearing. When we analysed it and found the source of the sound, it was a water outflow pipe gushing down a wall outside the building. Now, they were interpreting it because they were in a haunted place and it was all a bit spooky. So it sounds like a body being dragged. On another occasion, we were doing a private house, and there was an investigator at the bottom of the stairs and two investigators at the bottom, two at the top. And we had one fixed camera looking up the stairs from the ground floor level. And we noticed that when they came back after a period of time, that they'd said that they'd heard the sound of footsteps rushing down the stairs. I thought, well, that sounds interesting. Let's go back and look at the recordings from that period. We noticed that from another camera further back on the first floor, that the investigators on the first floor were busy writing notes and sitting there. And one of them sort of lurched a little bit. The two on the ground floor didn't react or respond. They glanced up and then looked back down again. There was no sort of big reaction. But there was this intriguing sound. And you could say it did sound like footsteps rushing down the stairs. The camera revealed what had actually happened is the investigator at the top of the stairs had dropped a pencil. The pencil had then bounced down all of the stairs to the bottom, which the ones at the bottom had noticed and had thought, well, he just dropped his pencil. But a sound recorder had been placed on the wooden steps and was picking up the sound through the body of the recorder rather than the microphone. So what we did after that is we sent everybody out to the local pound shop and we got them all to buy back sponges. And anybody that needed to place a recorder down was a very important lesson that we learned, and something that all our team still carry in their equipment bags is a bath sponge, because you put the bath sponge down and you put the recorder on it and it removes case vibration noise and handling noise. So,
but you see, these are the little tips that, you pick up the more time goes on. But then I suppose it depends on how much of a serious investigator you are, because a lot of people are going to go with their belief factors. It doesn't matter what you say, that is what they believe. And fair play. If that's
it's way
what you
more fun to think that, it's way more fun to believe and to tell people that, you've got this amazing, OMG, LOL, I've got this amazing, I was going to say list there, but Project Reveal and all that sort of OMG, WTF, witch in the graveyard. Can I say bullshit on the show?
Oh, you can say what you want on this show, Steve.
There is no questioning of what they do, because what they want to do is clickbait. So if they have and there are groups out there that do it, what they're doing is they will then rush onto YouTube or Facebook, and they will play the recording and go, OMG, footsteps running down the stairs. Medium said it was a ghost of a little girl. Well, look a bit closer, people. Up your game, be a bit more credible about what you're doing. Because then we can, then you're going to be plausible when you do have that WTF moment.
I mean, to be fair, I think we all want some form of a WTF moment, for want of a better word. We all want that something that's phenomenal, that blows our minds. But I think the expectation of what that actually is can be taken out of all proportion. And a lot of that is because of what you do see on clickbaits and on TV and stuff, because it's all the exciting stuff, right? But realistically, being a paranormal investigator isn't exciting.
At 3 a.m. it's not, I agree.
No. Have you? I don't think you've ever seen me at 3 a.m., have you, to be honest, Steve? It's not the best.
It's one of those weird things that you do that you look forward to doing it until you're halfway through doing it, and then you look forward to stop doing it. But, people ask, where's the excitement? Well, why do you do it? In the course of, I'll give away my age, you can probably tell them, slightly older, more mature, I started looking for ghosts, according to my mum and dad, when I was on holiday as a small sort of 5, 6-year-old. I wanted to go and look, because I wanted to see a bloody ghost. I still do. And I'm now approaching the age where I've been looking for ghosts for approaching 50 years. And I still want to see ghosts as much as I did then. But in all of that time, I've had 5 or 6 WTF moments. But because of the way I look at the situations, when they happen, they are off the scale WTF moments. But not immediately, they sort of gradually you have the experience, you go, well, could it have been, could it have been, could it have been, could it have been? Test, which reinforces the idea of, wow, that's really, really interesting. There's been.
Can you just talk? I was just going to say, can you talk us through an occasion and what actually happened?
Well, I was just going to say, there's been one occasion in 50 years where the WTF moment happened nearly instantaneously, and we'd been investigating a location for about a year. And one of the things that we'd started to notice is that within the first 5 or 10 minutes, while we were lugging stuff in and out and putting the kettle on and doing all that sort of stuff happened. But it was intangible. There would be was that a sound like a piano, or was that a door? Stuff that you couldn't really pin down. But it was always within this. And at first, the first few times, we put it down to investigator excitement and the noises, we were making as we were toing and froing, because you don't always know where everybody is when you're starting out. So we hatched this plot, and what it was if it was the paranormal and it was playing tricks with us, we'd take it by surprise. So what we then did is, whenever we arrived, our first action was to open the door with an already running mini disc recorder. We would go in, we would place it with the microphone on its stand, and then we would leave and then start to do everything else. So literally as soon as we arrived, we would switch the recorder on, go in, put the thing down, and then we would all meet in the car park and do all the things we needed to do, knowing that at least we were recording the audio. So I went into the building, recorder in hand, placed the tripod and the microphone stand down. And what you always do is, you say, ground floor, time is, and you look at your watch and you say the time. So the recorder's got it. As I was saying it, there was a noise. And so I stopped and I waited, and there was another noise and another noise and another noise. And it sounded to me, I'm not saying it was, but it sounded to me like very heavy, determined footsteps in the corridor. I've got to say, it was an old school building, so it was a very long, narrow corridor. And as I had the only key to the only access door, I knew I was on my own. And so, like a good ghost hunter, I stood perfectly still. But I was also realizing that if this was something, it seemed like it was coming towards me. There was no way it could go past me because of this one doorway, this one entrance doorway. So it was either going to have to stop or go through me if it was in any way phantasmal. The recording's online, but so you can judge for it as yourself. We've never explained what the sound was, but as the recording runs on, and it's not, but this bit isn't on the Parascience Facebook website, is because I cut it off. Is as it happens, and as it goes to sort of reach the point where it must be almost nose to nose with me, and then it fades away. It does what it does. You hear me go, wow. And we spent the next 3 months in all manner of footwear on the ground floor, the upper floors, trying to recreate that. We looked at doors and plumbing, and we've never been able to get even close to recreating it. I don't know what it was. It sounded like footsteps in my brain, and it sounded like it was coming to get me. And it was the coolest thing.
I can almost imagine the excitement, actually, to be fair, when that happens.
I've got to say, I was completely motionless and silent because I thought, if he's going to get me, he's going to get me.
Well, what are you going to do? There's nowhere to go.
Well, I wanted it to get me because then I'd know. If it was a real sort of, if it was a real Mr. Angry apparition stamping its way down the corridor, which to my brain was interpreting it that way, I was going to go, it's either going to pick me up and stick me on the ceiling or like push me to one side, or I'm going to win and it's going to stop.
Mm. And you won.
Obviously, I'm still here.
And he wasn't on the ceiling. Well,
no.
No, you're definitely not see-through, Steve. Definitely not.
So that was one of the best WTF moments.
I would be pleased with that.
Mm.
If that was me, I would be ecstatic with that happening. But like you said, you've never
sustained me for 10.
Well, you've never actually said that was, as you said, you've left it for people to decide or decipher it however they wish to. You've never.
Well, I can't decipher it. I can't decipher it. I can't say it was a ghost. I can't say it was footsteps.
But that's what paranormal is, though. It's unknown.
I was. Now, people are probably aware, Parascience is particularly tenacious and determined, and we've got enough toys in our toy box to be able to test most things. And we don't tend to give up until we find an answer. And on that and 2 or 3 other occasions, we've thrown everything and the kitchen sink at it over months to try and solve, and had to say, well, we can't say it's paranormal, but we can't say what it is.
No, it's unknown.
It's unknown. That's
fascinating, but unknown.
Ever come. So,
yeah, a lot of people would say that they would have said my encounter with a ghost.
What, WTF?
Absolutely. Now,
would have said my encounter with the ghost. Sorry, my South Yorkshire accent isn't very good.
He's started, so he's going to finish. Honestly, there was one time where I was actually sat at the SPR, and up on one of the slides flicked a photo of me. Do you remember that, Steve?
Ah, but you were wearing a Ghostbusters costume.
I was. Not through choice, though, one might add. Not through choice.
Well, I mean, that was put up to illustrate. It wasn't illustrating the ghost hunters. It was illustrating the numbers. In that, the news article it was referring to said that there was around 12,000 active ghost hunters in the UK, and predominantly female was the claim that the Daily Mirror, I think it was the Daily Mirror, was making. And what we were saying is there are 12,000 people out there, plus there's probably another 3 times that who go out on a Saturday night in groups, on these events. And then you've got the crackpots that go out every night of the week on Facebook.
I can't for the life of me work out what you're referring to be honest, Steve.
No, I always wondered why they haven't yet encountered old hag syndrome.
What, you mean they haven't?
Not yet. Well, I'm sure he has.
This is Steve leading me down a very dark path, everybody. Dark path. I don't need much encouragement on an average day.
I was being subtle.
It's not like you, Steve.
Actually, it's very like me. Actually, it's not. I'm being very restrained. I mean, you want to hear some of the talk
exactly. Exactly. I mean, this is one of the things that I love about you.
Gin and tonics.
Because you say it as it is. You are very down to earth and you're very practical and you don't take no crap. And I like that about you, Steve.
You know what winds me up about what grinds my gears about the current paranormal scene.
Oh, I ain't heard that in ages. What grinds my gears? What
grinds my gears?
Yeah,
is that you've got people who are genuinely interested in understanding. And they want to find answers. They want to find, what's a ghost? What was my experience paranormal? They're curious, and they are being instantly misled by mainstream broadcast media and social media, and that's not their fault. It is the fault of the people that are making it, which is why I point fingers at certain idiots that go out every night of the week, and television programs like Super Mario Brothers, if you know what I'm referring to, 2 plumbers chasing ghosts. Said that once on Taps Family Radio and nearly got. I actually had death threats after that one. Well, what else? I mean, come on. There's a fat plumber and a thin plumber, and they chase ghosts. It's Super Mario, isn't it?
Is anybody else got the theme tune for Mario Brothers just floating around their head right now?
I did a talk a few years ago where I did an extract from with that theme music playing over it. There we go.
Why am I not surprised?
But the thing is,
there is no whole part. There is the Steve.
Well, the problem isn't with the investigators, the groups themselves, the people, the members of the groups, the tech experts and the sensitives. Because when they ask, who did they ask questions for? The SPR had largely abandoned them. It became the domain of the corduroy wearing, the ones with the elbow patches, and I'm a professor of psychology and it's all bollocks. And, or you've got ASAP. Well, they've been a bit wayward for a few years, haven't they? They've got nowhere to turn to. Academic parapsychology has kicked them off into the long grass as a branch of care in the community. So they turn to one another and television, and they see Zach Bagans rushing around going, "Dude, it's a ghost," and chucking Aaron in at the deep end at every opportunity. They see Steve Lear running around in graveyards every night on Facebook, and they think that's the best way of doing it. So they copy it and they emulate it. Now,
the problem with that is people are not learning, people are not adjusting technique or upping their game. Do you know what I mean? That it's like, and credit to them, if they want to stay at that level, then I take my hat off to you, feel free. But I've always been more of a but why kind of person. Those really annoying children that are like, why?
Even if the why questions are being asked, where were you getting the answers?
Well, I was getting them from my book collection, to be fair.
Exactly. But how many people, how many people now, they don't read books anymore. They don't. When I started, I was really lucky. There was no such thing as the internet, and I had to use libraries and good old fashioned things like that. And I read about stuff that Harry Price was doing. I pestered the librarian to get more books about it, Elliot O'Donnell books and Andrew Green's books and Peter Underwood's books. And there were different methods in it. So I thought, this sounds really cool. I want to go and see a ghost. I'll go and try it. And then I discovered that didn't work. I didn't see a ghost. What can I do to improve my chances? How do I get to see a ghost? And I eventually came to realize, as you go through school, you're taught about how to do science and experiments. Do you remember that book you said you list your apparatus and equipment and method and aims and the experiment and then the outcome and the conclusions?
Steve, guess what? Guess what? I still have one of those books.
Yeah.
It's not one of those exact books, but it is my book that I use on investigations.
Ladybird book.
Hang on, I got one too here somewhere. Got my two here. But that one.
I haven't seen one of them in ages.
Yeah, it's actually a notebook.
Oh, is it? Did you get that from what?
The one I use the most is it used to be a car tyre. Oh look, there's actually, bizarrely, a plan from one of the investigation visits I was doing the other week. Because you go along and you think, well, how big's this room? So you sketch it out. You can see. I mean, I didn't even realise it was there, but you can see a sort of crude sketch plan. So that when I get back, I can go, well, how big was that space? And, I've got ghost. As I said at the start of the show, one day a ghost hunting group or ghost hunter is going to be in the right place at the right time. If they get that opportunity wrong, if they stuff that up, then it'll just be another crazy video on YouTube.
Mm. How was that investigating change from the other days to what it is now?
The basics haven't changed at all. When I came to write the 2018 guidance notes, there wasn't very much, the basic methods haven't really changed in the past 100 years or so. It's about listen to what the witness is saying, test what you can, evaluate what you've got, and try and determine, try and find out what the cause is. If you can't find out what the cause is, say, we don't know. Don't say, well, it's paranormal. I mean, how many groups sit around and go, well, we explored everything and it must be paranormal? No, you explored everything. You didn't find it. That doesn't mean you're incompetent. That means that at the moment you weren't able to find it. But so the basics haven't ever changed. Not since, forget 100 years. Go back 1,000 years. Go back to Athenodorus in Greece. Because brilliantly, that ghost, that letter about Athenodorus, who was a scholar, he heard about the haunted house in Athens. He said, I'm going to find out what's the matter with this. So he moved in with his servants, and he sat there in the middle of the night writing his notes for the next day. And according to the story, the ghost appears and stands there mournfully next to him, rattling chains. And Athenodorus waves the ghost away and goes back to his notes. What he's not really, he's not being super brave. What he's really doing is removing expectation and removing any fear factor or knee-jerk response. He's steeling himself to find out what happens next.
That is the biggest thing that I find in investigations, people's fear factor. So your fight or flight mode kicks in the minute you hear something. You're in a dark room, you're in the middle of nowhere, you've all got your torches off, you think you know where everybody is, you think that you know that everybody's still, and then you hear something and instantly your brain goes a bit crazy. So the little man in your head's like, this is it, danger alert, danger alert. So you go into fight or flight mode, and then that's when everything becomes more extreme.
Yeah. But we don't. We don't do that in our when we investigate though. We don't. If we hear something, we don't run off and scream. We try to find out what it is.
That's where you're going wrong.
Yeah. I mean, the problems with this are legion, aren't they? I mean, first of all, why are the lights off? There's a light switch there. Put the bloody lights on. Because I'll wager that 9 out of 10 cases that I've investigated down the years, the witness wasn't sitting in the dark. And they certainly weren't ghost hunting, and that's the important thing. They were not ghost hunting, so their expectations were very different than if you were dragged. You know, we were up at Scottish Castle doing some team building training week. Actually, Rosslyn Castle in the days before the Da Vinci Code made it unaffordable, and like a lot of these sort of. The kitchen becomes the centre of everybody's universe. We had a team of 14 up there, and the kitchen was like the base camp for everybody. You know, they were smoking, they were making cups of tea, toast, and all manner of other. Everything happened in the kitchen, so everybody knew that kitchen. You know, by the end of the week, like their own homes. So on the last night, one at a time. It was one at a time. We stuck them in the kitchen for 10 minutes with all the lights out to show them something. And within 10 minutes, more than 3/4 of the group who knew that room intimately well either left or didn't like the kitchen because it was full of strange and unusual shadows and shapes. Because we turned the lights off. That's all we've done.
But that's
all of these shapes, the shape of the blender, the shape of the knife rack, the toaster, all, I don't know, I can't recognise it now. So they're unrecognisable.
The minute you turn the lights off anyway, so your eyes take a good hour to adjust properly to the dark. Well, I always give it an hour because I've got dodgy eyes, to be fair. In all fairness, I am supposed to wear glasses, so it does take longer. But your eyes are always trying to focus, and you'll find that a lot of the time they'll be staring in one direction. Well, you know yourself, when you're laid in bed of a night time, you'll see something on your wall, and then before you know it, your head is seeing that as moving, even though it's not. And it's because your eyes are trying to focus.
There's something also interesting that happens, and this was something we noticed a long time ago, which is we always put investigators. I mean, in the early days, when the group was a lot smaller, we had to suffice with 1 or 2 dotted about, and we did everything that groups today do. We sat in the dark because that's what we thought you did, and what we realised is, after 10 minutes, it didn't matter how much sleep you'd had. 10 or 15 minutes in the dark at 11:30 at night, you were in dreamland. You were like, oh, my eyes, I can't. So what we started to do was put people together in pairs. And we still do. We have ever since. And we let them talk to each other. And we let them talk about anything except the case. They can talk about what they had for dinner. They can bitch about me.
Absolutely.
They can talk about video games. We've had ones where, I remember one at Ludlow where almost the entire team was engaged in how many parts, how many names for ladies and gentlemen's rude parts could we think of?
Oh, I would love that one.
Because
Dave, we're doing that.
Investigating is just the witness. When they were there, they were not ghost hunting. They were just there.
You see,
and so what we're trying to do is to get our team just there.
A lot of people don't go to your alpha case, so your alpha case is usually a housewife pottering about, something happens, she's just going about her daily life, as we all would. But a lot of people don't actually try to recreate that scene. So, just move in, go live in the house, go stay there for a week. A lot of people don't tend to do that sort of thing anymore. It is just a case of rock up on a night time, take all your equipment. Hello, is there anybody there?
Get the Ouija board out. Get the Ouija board.
So, it's not like people, and I love it because, people will say, well, it's the stone tape theory, but it's not. It's not at all.
Well, if the person was watching Corrie at 8 o'clock when they had their experience, Why are you there at midnight with the Ouija board trying to make the kitchen table flip over and got some busted radio sitting there going, can you hear me? Here's an interesting one. Let's look at these busted radios for a second.
Oh, dear.
Because
Steve, I love you.
so they get this radio.
We'll bring Steve along next time instead of having the SB7.
Yeah, or the SB7 or the Echo Vox or some other piece of nonsense, and they put it on, and then everybody hears this cacophony of sound from the bloody thing. Now, then they say things like, "Speak through the box so that we can hear you." Well, hang on, there's a problem. You're calling out, but the ghost, so the ghost can hear you, but you can't hear the ghost. You see where this is going?
Steve, I knew where this was going when you started that whole sentence. To be
then you ask these people, you say, why are you using this thing? So that we can. Well, how does it work? Well, there are two theories apparently. This is what I've gleaned from ghost hunters down the years. There are two theories as to how EVP ghost boxes work. The first is the spirits, because they're really clever. They're listening to every single radio station, real time, and then chopping and cutting the bits of that real time audio from perhaps 500 radio stations on FM and AM band, and then dropping them into the conversation. Or the other way of doing it, apparently, is they don't need that. They just need that noise, and then they speak over it. Like Sparky, the magic piano. If you just think about it, it's nonsense. If you have to sit there going, and calling out, the ghosts are obviously deaf. Well, they are. They must be, because you stand in the middle of the ghost hunter. Yeah. And, can you hear me? I can't hear you. Speak through the radio. If I shout like, can you? I mean you no harm. I'm waiting for the ghost box to say, what do you mean harm? I'm dead. Well, the other one that you get a lot of is the use our energy. What are you going to do? Where do you plug the wires in?
There would be no point in me ever saying use my energy, because I never freaking have any. I'd be wasting my time.
How would we get the energy from? I know how to get the energy from a PP3 battery. Or a solar panel. I don't know how to get the energy from Gemma.
You won't get any. I've told you, you're wasting your time.
I could start off, I don't know, maybe a butt plug with a wire on the end of it. I don't know.
Steve's just
look at the methods. I think in that same talk I did for the SPL where you appeared. Did they use the slide?
In all fairness, I am just going to throw it in there. I did look very beautiful on that picture.
She did. Which is why I chose it. Further on, did I use a slide of the Irish group?
Yes.
They're all standing round, holding hands in a circle around 2K2 meters. A pair of dealy boppers, light up dealy boppers on springs, and a flower. You'll figure. One of them, and then one of them, because I could never figure out. I was having trouble with that till I noticed that one of the investigators, they all wear these like military hardware belts, don't they, that they get from B&Q.
Oh,
makes them look like proper soldiers. Makes them look like proper investigators. I've got my combat B&Q jacket on.
Oh, the best.
I'm going to do battle with a demon hanging from the jacket. Now, I don't know whether he'd been at work or whether this was a new way of investigating. He might have come straight from work, but there was a claw hammer. What were you going to do with it? And would you stand in a room in the dark with a bloke holding the claw hammer? No. No sensible person would. I mean, your only weapon would be a KT meter and flowers. Actually, it just reminded me of one that happened in Haverfordwest.
Oh dear.
Have you got Ghostology handy to plug it? Yeah.
Don't know what you mean, Steve.
Well, in there you'll see a description of a human pendulum experiment that was done by a Welsh group in Haverfordwest, and they'd invited me along to be part of their investigation. Now, in Ghostology is another occasion when they did it, and I noticed that they played this sort of sea shanty music, and during the human pendulum, as the music, sort of swelled up and went down, they were swaying backwards and forwards. So the next time that they did it in the second session, this isn't in Ghostology, this is like the next time they did it, whilst they were playing it, because it was on a digital playback device, I sped it up by 30% while they were all swaying to and fro. They all fell over.
Yes, seasick.
Also in there, actually, is which is also mentioned. I think it was the same week. We had a leading, because all psychics are award-winning, aren't they? So we had an award-winning psychic, and the end of the public week was she was going to leave them with this grand seance in the ballroom of an old nightclub. So she gathered everybody around. Now, my job was finished, but I was there to watch because I hadn't seen this particular award-winning psychic conducting a seance, and I'm curious. I had with me, from an earlier demonstration of show and tell, 2 mag lights, a red one and a blue one. And what we were doing is, it doesn't matter what we were doing, but anyway, I had 2 mag lights, and I put them down on the table, both turned on, so that they were shining into the seance. And the medium was quite happy with that. I checked, and she was more than happy. Then, of course, she started doing her routine thing, and the mag lights started to flicker. No surprise there either. They were always going to, because they always do. And she started to notice. I hadn't said anything. I was quite some distance away. I wasn't going to speak. And she noticed the lights flashing. And the video is really quite entertaining to see, because for the next 20 minutes, she talks to the mag lights. She makes up an entire story about the phantom, what happened to the particular person, how they were murdered, because they're always murdered, how they were there to protect the child, because there's always child ghosts. This whole thing. Then when it ended, everybody was like, oh my God, that's so unbelievable. Well, unbelievable, probably a good choice of word. Then it came to the final farewells, and I can't let people go home believing that what was just happened was, I had to give them the opportunity to think it through a little differently. So obviously I'd turn off the mag lights, and I said, oh, thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd put them on the table. I turned on again. And after a few minutes of me rambling, they started to flicker. I went, oh, hello, you're back again, are you? Have you got any final words for the audience? Can you turn yourself off if you've had a really lovely night? And of course, the mag lights were playing along. And I went, look, before you go home, if you think that this is paranormal, let me just explain that when the tail cap on the mag light is released, it takes the tension off the spring, and as the bulb gets hotter and colder, it breaks it and makes the contact. It's very well understood. The medium still won't speak to me to this day. She thinks I did it deliberately to set her up. I said, I didn't make up a story.
It's not about
wasn't me that made up the
though,
story.
is it?
Well, I didn't make up a story. I just put 2 mag lights down. She made up the entire bloody story and then blamed me afterwards. And her supporters still think I deliberately set her up. That I primed her with the story.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of these days I am going to get through a whole interview with you without actually wearing my mascara all the way down my face because you're making me laugh. I am going to do it.
They're all true.
I mean, I've got another book of yours somewhere here, Steve. I didn't have a chance to grab it out, but Steve's books,
That's it.
yeah. Steve's books are for anybody who wants to learn a little bit more. I would highly, highly recommend these books. I will put a link in for your books, Steve.
On Amazon.
But they are honestly worth it. And to be fair, they are quite. Listening to Steve tonight, you've probably noticed he can be a little bit humorous from time to time. So that comes across in the books as well. So it is definitely worth a read. Well, I think the hardest thing is educating people, isn't it? When people aren't willing to look outside of the box because and quite rightly so, we all want to believe that the paranormal is a real thing. We all want to believe that, but we all go about it in our different ways. Like, I won't just automatically assume that everything's paranormal. But if people want to believe that, then I'm not going to judge. Do with as you wish. But there is a difference between actual proof and personal experiences.
Experience or your opinion never changes fact, never changes truth. You can, I'm entitled to my opinion. Well, if you want to have an opinion that the earth is flat and that demons infest anything with a face, wasn't it didn't Barry Guy say that famously? Anything with a face can be haunted by a demon. All our goldfish were gone the next morning. Bloody I didn't want demonic goldfish.
Oh, yeah.
Barry Guy, Britain's answer to Zach Bagans.
Oh, dear.
Oh, God, you absolutely kill me. Oh, God, all I'm saying is you should actually try going and having a bevy with Steve after a ghost club or an SPR meeting, because it just gets 10 times worse.
But the thing is, these people, I think it says somewhere on Barry Guy's Facebook or social media that he is Britain's foremost ghost investigator. Honestly, he couldn't find his way out of a damp paper bag.
That's last time I heard it. It was the professional ghost hunter.
See, that boiled my...
How he's labelling himself? How's he labelling
that really
himself, Dave?
infuriates me.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the drivel he comes up with.
What did you just say, Steve? How does Dave label himself?
No, I was asking Dave because I thought he was looking at Barry's website or whatever to see if we could find out how he was labelling himself.
No, I was calling himself a professional ghost investigator or paranormal investigator.
He gets paid.
But I don't think anyone can be a professional in this field anyway.
I object to that.
Have you read these books? Do you want to borrow them? Well, you see, I mean, you're quite heavily involved as well, though, aren't you, Steve, with the Ghost Club?
Well, to be honest, no. I'm just an advisor to the Ghost Club. I've done a number of talks.
An advisor.
Pardon?
What more would you want than an advisor? So an advisor is somebody that you go to for advice.
Do you know how, when they asked me, my ego was like the size of a planet? Oh my God. Because, I mean, you grow up and I'd read, books by Peter Underwood, chairman of the Ghost Club and all that. I thought, my God, these people want me to be an advisor to them. I was unbelievably blown away by the honour of it.
I can imagine.
Because it's like when I first started going to the SPR conferences and seeing my heroes, my childhood heroes, Guy Playfair and Maurice Grosse, and talking to them. I mean, I think my first conversation with them was something like, cool.
Oh God, I think we've all. Well, I'm hoping we've all had those moments.
In his final year, I did a talk for the Ghost Club in London, and as we were getting ready, people were filing in. Guy Playfair, who was really quite frail by then, arrived, and I went over. I knew him well enough by then, and said, "Fantastic! I'm so pleased that you made it." He said, "I didn't want to miss your talk."
Oh,
you can imagine the effect that had on me. I was completely blown away. That my childhood hero was now, putting himself out to come and listen to something, the nonsense I had to say.
oh.
Incredible.
Yeah, but I see now that is something that I would call a professional's work. When you had people like Guy wanting to come along and listen, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it does. And he didn't heckle either.
Did he not?
No.
Surprise. But no, we know. I mean, all jokes aside, like as much as, because I've seen quite a few of your talks now, Steve. It's almost like I'm a bit of a stalker, isn't it? It's a bit weird that. So I've seen quite a few.
There are far worse.
I've seen quite a few of your talks, and they are, because you do input this humour, which makes people stand up and listen even more, I think. So you inject that humour, but they are so full of information that needs to be shared, but I
hope so, because
the right people are getting that.
Well, it's always been I realised, and it's always been my intention, because preaching at people is dull. People don't want to just sit there and be preached at and told, you're doing it wrong, and this is the only way to do it. I would never dream, when I was, and we had quite heated discussions over the guidance notes, because they could never be you must do this, because each group, each individual is a group and an individual with their own dynamic and way of dealing with things. So what I was doing with Ghostology, and later with the guidance notes and the next set, are just foundation stones for good practice. What you build on those foundation stones is up to you. But people don't want to sit there and be preached at and finger pointed, and so you have to engage with them and tell it as it is. And if you look at if you have a look in an example of me, is because I think that a book has to reflect the author a little bit, and I've always been a little bit sort of anarchic, and I don't like rules just for the sake of rules. What is the final chapter of Ghostology?
Which one?
Was it Ghostology? What is the final chapter?
I really can't remember off the top of my head. Isn't it? Oh no. It just says, and finally.
Yeah. What is it?
The word search.
Paranormal word search for when you're bored.
And would you believe, right? I've not actually. I've not done it on the book because I can't stand writing on books because I don't like ruining them.
And do you know what? And perversely, because again it reflects me, there's no clues, there's no words, there's no answers.
No, it is just the word search.
Because there are no clues, words, or answers in ghost hunting.
But you can find your own.
Yeah.
Make it up as you go along. That's what I did.
Well, I actually found 3 words that I hadn't intended to put in. And 2 of them were rude, which was really quite fun.
I am just consulting that word search now. I ain't even got my glasses on. I can't see it right now.
We're quite safe, Dave. Let's just talk amongst ourselves.
I'm looking for the root words.
When that book came out, a friend in America sent me a shocked email about one of the pictures in it, because the pictures that were used, obviously the printer, the publisher, had gone a bit low res on the photographs because it started off as a colour photograph and then got transcribed into a black and white photograph. And the words are always more important because most of the illustrations are actually drawings or diagrams, but there's the occasional photograph. And this photograph looked fine when it was submitted. And I had an email from a very shocked friend of mine in America goes, "Why are you putting porn in Ghostology?" I'm not. There's no porn in Ghostology.
That's the wrong book.
I won't tell you which section it's in, but now I can't look at that section because as soon as he pointed it out to me, I can see exactly what it was that he was referring to.
See, now that's going to bug me. Now I'm going to have to go back and look for porn. But what was his mindset in when he was reading the book, though, to be fair? Because I was reading the book
that was my next question. Yeah, that was my next question.
What mindset was you in? Was you reading 50 Shades before?
Yeah, what on earth were you doing or thinking when you were reading that chapter or immediately before?
What was you doing and thinking?
Get your mind out of the gutter.
You see, because that does have an impact.
Yeah. Well, it's entirely his fault. Well, it's entirely his fault that Ghostology exists. It would never have existed but for him. Ghostology, the book, came from Ghostology, the course, which is a 1 or 2 day, I don't know what you call it, workshop.
I like workshop.
And I realised that people hate, I could see people frantically trying to write notes as I'm waffling on at the front. And I used to hate that. I hated it at college. I hated it, I hated it at conferences. It's just like, no. So I know what we'll do. I'll give them some handouts so that I can talk about it and then say, don't worry, it's all in the handout. And as the handouts got bigger, I used to put them onto CD-ROMs and then people could take them away and print them out and look at them later. And I had a load of CD-ROMs I took with me to do Ghostology workshop in America. But I thought, I can save myself some luggage. Can I borrow your printer when I get there? Because I need one copy of the notes so I can say, look, here's the notes. So I sat there. He said, yeah, not a problem. So I loaded it onto the computer. It was only a PDF file and started to print it. Now, in fairness, it's computer dated. I think it had been one of Noah's original computers on the Ark. And it wasn't the fastest computer in the world, but 3 hours later. And as it printed off page number 120 something. So I hadn't printed these. I'd always just given them out of CD-ROMs.
So not just a small print out then?
Yeah. So he said to me, why don't you write a freaking book? What have you written there? A freaking book. I just got back and thought, actually, I could probably, with a little cutting and pasting and tweaking, I could turn it into a book. I for years had said, I'm never going to write a book because there's no point, on a bookshelf. How will they know that, a book I write is anything different than Troy Taylor or Zach? What is it? Ghost Hunting for Dummies? He didn't write it, did he?
Well, that book's not made it onto my shelf anyway, to be fair.
Oh, I've got a copy.
I got
a copy.
No.
Because in order to know it's bad, you've got to read it. It's the same with equipment. I have got K2s, I've got an Ovilus, I've got a stuffed cat with a battery up its backside that bleeps if ghost goes near it. I've got, the cat ball toy that lights up. I've got all of these crazy.
That's not a ghost.
Oh.
Sorry to interrupt. That is not a ghost coming into my bedroom. Yeah. No, sorry, it's not a ghost. Yeah, go on. You were saying, so you got a cat with a battery shoved up its arse.
I've got them all because the only way that you understand them and how they work is to use them. and
But
try them out and test them and to see, because otherwise you can't criticize them. You take people like Hayley Stevens, who, every time there's a new gadget, she's up there like, mouth, it's rubbish, it doesn't work. Never tried one, doesn't know how it functions, doesn't know how it works, doesn't know where the batteries go, it's...
Which is fine, and I get that. With equipment, I will try it, I will test it out, but I will also go, because I like to know the ins and outs of the duck's ass when it comes to equipment. Exactly how does this work? What exactly does it measure? I will
Where do the batteries go?
Oh, I always know where the batteries go, and I can make sure that I can put the batteries in the dark. So, Dave, you're laughing because you think that was rude. David!
No, he's just figuring out where the batteries went on the duck.
You can't beat mine, though.
But when it comes to books, like I've read the synopsis of Ghost Hunting Guide for Dummies, and I literally went, I will not be able to read that book without getting angry. So I won't buy it because it'll make me angry.
Well, he didn't write any of it, or almost none of it. It would have been ghost written for him. But I was asked to review it, and so the SPR sent me a review copy. And you can read my review. And I got shouted at by some because they said I gave it a thumbs up. I said, if you're going to buy it because you're a Ghost Adventures fan, if you're going to spend money and buy the book, read the bloody thing, because it won't do any harm. In the book, because fortunately he didn't write it and it's not too wayward, you will actually pick up some good tips and hints from the book. So, people will buy it. It will, and that's the reality of it. It will sell. People will buy it. It will be a bestseller. But often people will just
for wrong reasons.
It doesn't matter. Well, yeah, I understand that. But often people will just buy it for a Zoom background. Or, for when they're standing in front of the webcam and go, look at my bookshelf.
See, you don't even get to see my bookshelf. Nobody gets to see that.
Disappointed now.
I've got your books off it, Steve. I brought them out. What more do you want?
I can't show you my bookshelf because I use an iMac and I can't physically turn it round because the bookshelf's over there.
See, yeah, mine's up the side of me, so yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
no. Yeah, I like it where I can just reach stuff. So, because I'm obviously sat at my desk, so as I'm sat here, because obviously I do my psychology as well. Now I'm a student again. So I like everything.
You're doing psychology?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough.
It's very tough, very tough. I've never gone through so much hair dye in my life, to be fair. But it's something that I've always wanted to do. So there's never going to be a perfect time to do it. So I just thought, what exactly am I waiting for? I'm not waiting for anything. I did the same with my nursing, I always wanted to be a nurse, so I went and did my nursing and then decided that I didn't actually want to be a nurse after all. But at least I can say I've done it.
Yeah, I mean, psychology, it's, people always think that I've got a problem with psychologists. I haven't. They've got all the problems.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you've not really got a problem with psychologists, though, have you?
No, I won't. No. But it's part of the game that I've been playing for years. I work very well with Kieran or Cal, Simon Sherwood, Chris French, all of them. It probably goes back to, and it's the reason why both Anne Winsper and I, who founded Parascience together, she's got her PhD. I decided to take a pause. Yeah, I decided to take a pause with mine. Because I got sidetracked and busy doing other stuff, and B, because of the way it started out. We had gone to a conference in Liverpool donkeys years ago, and it was an academic parapsychology conference. Now we were just wet behind the ear ghost hunters, and they sat us at the back. And every time we asked something or questioned something, the responses essentially they're you're just the ghost hunters. I've got corduroy with leather patches and I've got a PhD. So both Anne and I in the lunch break sat there and said, you know what? Let's just go and get a PhD.
Let's do it.
And let's just go and do it. And then they'll listen to us. Because obviously having a PhD means that, they'll take notice of you. Now Anne continued. I'm about a year from finishing mine whenever I want to restart that final year. But we both reached the point where we didn't need the PhD. They were listening to us, and because we were producing
good content.
When we said, you can up your game. I'm not blowing hot air, because we did it, because we looked at what we were doing 30 years ago and going, you know what, this is crazy. We're standing here looking, that's paranormal and that's paranormal, and let's look at how this can be done. There is a method. It's called science. Let's use it. Let's make our evidence impressive and credible. And that's all we did. Is we tweaked what we were doing using, we didn't have science degrees. We just used what we learned at school about how to conduct a good science experiment, and threw in a healthy dose of common sense and wrote up the results, presented the results for peer review, and said, what do you think of this? Oh, well, it's a bit flawed there, or it's a bit, this needs changing, or that could be better. And we did it. We changed it. We improved it. We redesigned things. We did things differently. We evolved with the advice that we were being given, and from the practice, doing the investigations. Luckily, most of our mistakes are dead and buried because there's no such thing as the internet. So we didn't need to go. I kind of feel sorry for this modern generation who, there was a group that started quite recently in West Wales, about 12 months ago. And they started the same as every other group. 4 keen people, interested, keen. But rather than go off and spend some time in haunted places and see for themselves what was happening, first of all, they had a name and a Facebook page. Then they spent the first 2 months begging likes off anybody and everybody. Then they did the first investigation with the public. That was how a modern group starts. Now, the pressure to produce spooky, weird shit is way higher. We had nobody, we were answerable only to the person whose building we were investigating. They got a report. So we could spend, and did spend, 1, 2, 3 years on a case, and agonize over going back and testing and retesting. And we didn't need to go and have stuff on YouTube the next morning, or, click like, guys, and don't forget to hit the bell button and subscribe and send me some stars. We didn't need. We didn't need to. Oh, apparently on Facebook now, you can beg for stars, and a star is worth about, I don't know, it's about 1/10 of a penny. So people can give you money.
Oh, can I have a star?
No, because we're not on Facebook. Not now.
Well, we are. We're live out on Facebook now, yeah.
I think you have to set up an account first. Send Gemma lots of stars.
I want a star. Is it too much to ask for?
Just throw pennies at her.
God. Hey, no, this is all new to me. See,
Well, that's how. If you look at these every night of the week, join us at 9 o'clock, WWTF, a witch walks here, lol, OMG groups. They have publicly said that is their job, that is their income.
Oh, I actually have to leave the house and go do some actual work on every day of the week. Well, pretty much. And then alongside that, I do my studying. So I don't really have an awful lot of time to. So don't send me any stars, guys, because it's going to be pointless.
Well, Can't you just get take your phone out and go and wander around the graveyard and 9 o'clock every night? Go.
Not really, to be fair, because like I'm a little bit busy preparing for my life and my future. So no. And when I do have a little bit of downtime, what I'm actually going to do is drink a nice cold glass of gin, to be fair. So now I'm all right.
Can't beat gin.
Rhubarb and ginger gin with ginger ale, it's the way forward.
Oh no, I'm very much a navy gin.
Ooh.
Maybe 60% proof.
Ooh.
Do you know, when I was a teenager, we used to go out clubbing it. My mates used to go, "Why are you drinking gin for? That's a girl's drink." Oh, look at them all now, spending a fortune on boutique gin.
I liked gin before gin was a thing. Yeah, but I like every gin. I'm not fussy with my gin. If it's gin, I'm happy. Yes, Chrissy. Chrissy has just said, as we was like saying, like, obviously I'm busy. I've got a life. I've got a job. I've got kids. I've got a family. I've got my studies. Chrissy's just put and consume gin. The girl knows me so well. What can I say?
Not on an investigation, I hope.
No, absolutely not. After.
Hey, actually, there's 2 stories if we're talking about alcohol and investigations. The first is there's a very famous ASAP experiment when they were at Dover Castle. Oh, this was back in the 80s. And they thought, what would happen if we all got drunk? Would we see more apparitions and spooky stuff? So they all got drunk. And then in the middle of the night, they heard this really weird noise. So they were creeping down the tunnels underneath Dover Castle. Came round this sort of dead end, this horrible wailing and moaning. One of the investigators was completely pissed and fallen asleep and snoring in the corner. But we were doing a job for Japanese television 15 years ago, and they'd hired a country hotel for a week, a haunted country. By reputation, it was haunted. So to make sure that they had full access to the place, they hired the entire place for a week and stuck us in it with them.
Win-win.
And I thought so. I've forgotten the story. Now, what was the story about? Alcohol. See, this is what happens when you drink alcohol on an investigation. Or rather, you shouldn't drink alcohol on an investigation.
The memory.
I'm not going to tell that.
Anyway,
I'm going to spoil the chat room now. I'm not going to tell anybody what that story was.
Well, the memory on its own is bad enough because you remember things how you want to remember it, not as it actually happened.
Well, I'm going to throw them because I'm not going to tell that story because it might embarrass some people. Not me, obviously. But that was the first time we'd ever used, and this was way before Most Haunted. And they said to us, "Is there any equipment that you would like that we could we could hire?" And we'd always had this idea about a thermal imaging video camera system. We didn't know really why, apart from this idea. Well, maybe we can visualize. Be interested to see what would happen. So they came back with this £100,000 high-tech broadcast video camera system with thermal imaging units attached on the front of it. It was awesome to see. It came in a flight case the size of, we were captivated with it. And this was technology light years above what Most Haunted were using, that little handheld gun thing. We had a problem immediately from the off with the damn thing. We had to borrow some investigators from another team to make up the numbers. And anyway, Julie arrived, and they were wearing. We said no ghost, no uniforms, nothing, no group identities, anything like that. Just normal. You're going to be there for 24 hours. Wear relaxed, comfy clothes. So one of them was wearing a shell suit. One of the lads was wearing a shell suit.
Oh,
the
God.
thermal imager.
Do you remember those shell suits? Christ.
Yeah. Well, he might as well not have bothered with the thermal imaging camera. It was like it wasn't there. And it was quite a difficult sort of.
So it was sounding like a bag of crisps in a church, as well as looking naked.
In a word, yeah. Well, actually, then because this story about the thermal imaging, which it wasn't making his clothes invisible, it was just a thermal effect. But it did appear, he might as well have not been wearing anything. Well, a few months later, we were asked to participate in a Skywatch, because Parascience back then did a little bit more than just ghosts and hauntings. And this media wanted us to get involved with there's been a bit of a UFO flap. And we trooped up to the top of this hill, and we thought, well, the guys, we can nip behind the bush and have a wait, but the girls can't. So we took up this windbreak.
Real life issues.
To make a nice little area for the girls, and a porta potty for them. We lugged it to the top of this bloody hill.
You gent.
Yeah. None of the girls would use it.
Why?
Because they thought that the thermal imaging camera that we were using could see through the windbreaks. It couldn't. And we showed them loads of times it couldn't, but they didn't. They wouldn't believe us. So actually, they should have listened, because even though we showed them, they then went off down the hill in a group, because girls always go to the toilet en masse, don't they? They never go on their own.
Absolutely.
They have to go in threes and fours. So they all trooped off down the hill.
You know why that is, though, don't you? That's to make sure that we've not got lipstick all over our teeth, or toilet roll on our shoes, or skirt tucked into our knickers. That's why we go in groups. That's the only reason.
That explains it. Well, anyway, they came back, and there was a little bit of laughter, because they'd all crouched down, and one of them crouched down and weed into a handbag.
That would be me.
Well, you should have used the windbreak in the porta potty, but you wouldn't listen, would you?
I thought you were going to say she crouched down and got nettled.
No, she pissed into her handbag.
Oh my God. And on that note, this has been Steve, everyone.
Are we done?
I think it's about time we draw it to an end. My family want feeding, apparently. That's why they keep coming in.
Okay.
They're like,
I'm going to end with one more story then.
I'm hungry. Do what?
I'm going to end with one more. I'm going to end with one more non-ghost story from the early days of Parascience, when we were asked by the same newspaper to investigate an alien black cat phenomenon that people have been seeing, this black panther. Now, at the time, both Anne and I had cats, and we are both cat people. So we went off into the area where this black cat had been seen with the reporter, and we trudged up and down with night vision scopes, and we knew we were never going to see it. And he was getting more and more frustrated, and we'd rehearsed this. This was all set. It was set up by us, and we got an idea. So we went back to the car, and we produced a tin of whiskers and a saucer. Now, any person with a cat will know that this always works. We put the thing in the saucer. Bang! Here, puss, 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 puss. Here, puss, 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 puss. Here, puss, 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 puss. And he looked at us like, "What are you doing?" It works with my cat. They never asked us to do that newspaper again.
Oh,
Parascience has never done another alien black cat.
Oh dear.
There you go. By Ghostology. Wait till next year, and promote the guidance notes. Yeah, kitty, 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 kitty.
Meow. Meow.
Oh, dear.
God, I can't go.
It would only have been better if a 6-foot Black Panther had appeared with its tail in the air, purring round between your legs and Can I go now?
How the hell am I ever supposed to stay professional with you around? Oh God, you absolutely kill me. Ladies and gentlemen,
Tears coming down
thank you so much for joining us tonight. It has been an absolute honor, and don't forget, I will post the links for Steve's books. Please, if you've got time, just read the books. They are amazing. Steve, thank you so much for being.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers,
for being
Steve.
you.
We're gonna have you back at Christmas.
Oh well,
Yeah,
I want to.
I'll wear a Santa.
In the next book.
Should be out in
Freaking
spring.
will it all. It really would. Mankini and a Santa hat, probably. But we'll when the book's out. Do you know roughly when it's going to be out, Steve?
Yeah, in the spring. I'm just working on the cover now. It's going to be a mankini with a Santa hat. No, we haven't decided on the cover. It will be out hopefully before Easter.
Hopefully before Easter, fabulous. Because I will be reading that, and we'll have to chat again then at that point, Steve.
I look forward.
But for anybody wanting to check out Steve, head on over to Facebook. He is on Facebook, so Steve Parsons. If you've got any questions for him, ask him away. He will get back to you in about a week's time.
Only because I've got two little kids that are occupying me like 24/7. Little bastards.
Absolutely. Life's difficult at the moment, isn't it?
I mean, they've been tied up now for an hour and a half.
They've turned into Hermione Granger.
Yeah. No, you know what the one second. You know what the most effective.
Are you just going to pull a pin or something, Steve?
No. Do you have trouble with your children during lockdown? Use duct tape.
Oh my God, I can't breathe. And on that note, Steve, thank you very much.
Good night.
Love you lots. Bye.
Been a pleasure.
Everybody. Take care.
Stay safe, everybody. Bye.